afternoon, everybody. We'll make a note that all members of the administrative committee are present today. We also have Pat and Marshall Moon give us the second quarter report. Did everyone get a copy of the June 11th minutes? Are there any corrections, additions?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I will turn it over to you.
Okay. I'm going to start and talk about the portfolio, and then Marshall's going to follow up with some market comments. Tyler, we were talking about the retail sales. Of course, we follow that pretty closely, especially going on right now, because it's the first time we're beginning to see some weakness. It's not just Conway. Yeah. And it's a really good harbinger of just the average American, pulling back a little bit for a lot of reasons, whether it be political uncertainty or economic or whatever. So we're following that with interest. The larger companies, huge companies, are still doing pretty well, but middle America, maybe not so much. Be interesting to see how that pans out. Well, let's go to page 1 and look at your portfolio here. Snapshot of money flow and asset allocation and performance. So if you look at the top left, the trail of numbers is the 1-year activity summary, where 1 year ago on July the 1st, it was $6,527,000, and it had a market value increase of $1,381,000, dividends and interest of $373,000, so a large increase in the value from earnings. And then you made the first contribution that you've made in a while, and $500,000 there. And I can tell you that actually, looking back on it, came in at a pretty good time. No distributions, advisory fees there of $78,000, and ending market value of $18,703,000. Not quite a record, but really close, really close. If you look at the upper right hand, of course, the most important thing to note is a mix of stocks and bonds. It's pretty close to what it's been for a while, and we're kind of on the upper end, or creeping toward the upper end of stocks, and we have some room to run there and some room to add to stocks there. Fixed income being bonds, and then a little bit of cash. If you look at the performance at the bottom, this is net of fees. Had a really good quarter, up 6% for the quarter. Year to date, up 3%, and you see over the last year and 3 years, an average annual return of over 10%, and a rolling 5-year return of over 8%. So it's been a really good 5-year, 3 and 5 year spurt for the fund. On page 2, let's kind of break it down into kind of components. If you look at the top, fixed income, that's your bond portfolio. For the quarter, they were up 1.58%. There's 2 different measures of the bond market there. One is a kind of a short-term treasury, and the ag bond, that's kind of like the S&P 500 for the bond market. It's kind of what the whole bond market's doing. You can see up not quite as much. Year to date, up almost 4%. And then look at the rolling year, 6.76% from your bonds. So we went through many, many years where returns on bonds were minimal, if any. In fact, if you look at the 5-year, rolling 5-year, although your portfolio is up 1.44%, the bond market's really kind of been flat. And that's because interest rates have been going up. So finally, this bond portion, this fixed income portion, is adding value to your portfolio, where really for a decade or so, it was kind of a drag on performance. So we told you to trust us one day. It would help you, and it finally did. So I'm glad to be able to report that. If you look at the next group of numbers, common stock, that's your stock portfolio versus S&P 500. I can tell you the kind of concentrated portfolio that we run for you is about 24 stocks right now. We have not done very well over the last 2 quarters. It's been a really interesting thing to see. That market dropped 20% in April. We got back above neutral for year to date, and it's been kind of interesting. We've had several stocks down 20% that started to recover, haven't recovered yet, and so it's really put a dent in our long-term numbers. You can see rolling 1 year 9% versus the market of 15%. If you look at the 5-year, 13 versus 16. If you look back at when we started this product back in 2019, even with this 10% underperformance of the market, the market's up a little over 16, and your portfolio is right at 16% average over the last 5 years. So this has happened to us 2 or 3 times over the last 5 years, and we're looking forward to a recovery because it's been pretty painful for us to watch and experience, especially given that there wasn't anything that just blew up that we didn't like. It's just a matter of the markets taking certain stocks out, not performing well, and kind of concentrated in some technology stocks like we've done some in the past. The next group of numbers, the dark numbers, the ETF equity, that's your other segments of stocks, small company stocks, international stocks, emerging market stocks. So you can see they were up 9.4% for the quarter and 9% year to date. Look at that versus the S&P 500 up 6. So S&P 500, that's large company stocks. And what we've seen is we've seen a rotation into some stocks that have not done very well. And we've talked about that in the past. But look at the MSCI EFA, that's large company foreign stocks, up almost 20% year to date. And then the emerging markets, that's also foreign stocks, just smaller economies, also up 15%. Year to date. So those other asset classes have really helped your portfolio year to date and over the last year. So that diversification, kind of like the bonds, has really helped and begun to kick in some there. And then the portfolio value, that graph that we began to show you a couple of years ago, where you started, you put in $6,500,000 worth $18,700,000. Just shows you what the markets will do for you over a long period of time.
Yeah. How often do companies move in and out of the S&P 500?
It's a small number every year. It's a very, very small number.
They do it on an annual basis?
Yeah, well, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily. And it's not even on a regular basis. But what would you say? Less than 10 in and out every year of the 500?
Probably so. There's actually probably closer to 490 stocks in the index right now. So that have different qualifiers that allow a company to move into the index, like size and profitability and how long you've been public. So there's not an exact science to it.
Yeah.
So the S&P 500 is 490 stocks.
They round up.
There you go, round it up. Well, let me finish my portion of comments, except for some market comments from Marshall, and then what I can jump in on. But on page 3 is the individual stocks that you own. And then on the next pages are the funds and the bonds that you own. I might highlight one stock that we purchased for you this year. We kind of averaged into it once, a Deere & Company. To give you an example, artificial intelligence is everywhere now. Even a year ago, we were all kind of questioning, well, what is that? And now we've got kids getting kicked out of college because of it, cheating on their exams using artificial intelligence. But it's so much bigger than that. All the software that you use in your business processes at home, artificial intelligence is already part of it, and it's going to become more. So when we're evaluating these stocks to purchase, that's key in mind for us. Are these companies either responsible for some of the equipment or abilities or energy or whatever that allows all that to run, but how are companies using it? And if a company's not using artificial intelligence to produce a product, which enables them maybe do it with less workers, maybe more efficiently, certainly makes them more productive, we think they're going to be falling behind. And Deere & Company is an example. You would think maybe this huge machine operator, maybe they wouldn't be using artificial intelligence, but it has become a huge portion of their business. I'll give you an example. I told Marshall this story when I was in college a little while ago. I had a roommate that was from Greenwood, Mississippi, and his father managed a 10,000 acre farm. So I thought it was fun. I used to go home with him from time to time, and one summer he had a tractor with 2 seats on the front of it and put us on those 2 seats and gave us a squirt gun. They had herbicide in the back, and he'd just drive down roads and we would squirt weeds, with that. And so Deere has come out with this machine, not necessarily a combine, where that's exactly what this machine does. And it can identify weeds of all kinds of size. It can do it in 200 milliseconds on what they are, and this thing drives through and squirts through these different herbicides for different type of weeds. And this time next year, it'll be autonomous. It won't have a driver in it. So that's an example of something that's making farmers more efficient and making their equipment more attractive to farmers. So that's where the world's going for them. You know, you've got bigger and bigger farms, and it takes more and more equipment. Their autonomous combine will allow them, beginning next year, to go 24/7 on its own without a driver. It can prepare 350 acres of land from start to finish, getting ready to plant in 24 hours. So that's a good example of how a company, kind of mundane, is using artificial intelligence there. On page 4, just a list of the top stocks are your stock funds that are doing other things in large company US, and the values there, and then your bond portfolio of individual bonds. You know, you might notice there that the interest rate's now 5.2%, 4.8, 5.6. So we've been able to take advantage of these higher interest rates over the last year. That's why they're helping your portfolio there. And more the same on page 5 and 6. Any questions about the portfolio? Turn it over to Marshall to make some comments about the marketplace.
Yeah, we'll just start on this first slide titled "A Short-Term View of Stocks." So this is just a view of the S&P 500 over the last 24 months. So, you know, it's been on a pretty good run. Earlier this year, there was about a 6-week period where stocks fell 21%. And since about mid-April, they've recovered all of that and closed the quarter at an all-time high. So just wanted to kind of give you some perspective on this next slide of maybe what to expect. And so a lot of people intuitively would think, okay, all-time highs, the next sell-off is just around the corner. And what this will show you is that all-time highs are nothing to be scared of. In fact, investing at all-time highs has historically produced better returns than investing on any other day. So we view all-time highs as just the start of, you know, a new bull market, and hopefully this one has some legs and can continue for a good period of time. This third slide, consensus expected earning estimates, and the following one I'm going to use to just kind of explain some changes that we've made to our model portfolios this past quarter that you'll see implemented in your portfolio over the next few weeks. And that change that we made is going to be a reduction in your small cap stocks, which we'll use to put towards the larger stocks in your portfolio. So you won't really see a change in the overall equity allocation, but we view it as kind of increasing the quality of the portfolio. So what these two charts will show you, these are forward earning expectations of large company stocks, the dark green bars, and the other ones are smaller company stocks. And what you'll see is that you're still getting some growth in the larger company stocks, whereas the earnings for the smaller ones has kind of been flat for some time now.
This gets to your, Tyler, the conversation about smaller companies, retail companies, and large. This is exactly what you're seeing here. Even in large, what we would consider large, small companies like an Axiom or a Dillard's or whatever, everything's kind of flattening out, as you can see. The big keep getting bigger.
Mm-hmm. And the next slide, just to kind of add on to that further, not only are large companies still increasing earnings, but they've been able to start recouping margin as well. So they have the ability to stay and become much more profitable. And there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, the small company sector of the economy is traditionally a lot more cyclical, and whereas the larger companies in the world are a lot more reliant on technology. And for, you know, decades now, they've been able to use that technology to kind of scale their companies and have been able to grow much faster than smaller companies, which historically hasn't been the case. So this change, it's not necessarily a performance call, but you know, since the market bottomed in April, small company stocks and large company stocks have performed about the same. And traditionally, coming out of a bear market, you would expect small company stocks to do better on the outset. And so maybe one thing that tells us is that we're not so close to the beginning of the economic cycle, maybe more towards the middle. And we think that'll lend to better performance for larger company stocks over the next several years. Next slide is just a quick view on interest rates, which Pat touched on a bit ago. You know, in 2021 and 2022, you saw interest rates just skyrocket from nearly zero, but have kind of been flat over the last year or so. The Federal Reserve started to cut overnight rates in September of last year, and you know, I think it's probably more likely that overnight rates can continue to go down over the next year, probably, maybe beyond. So, you know, the bond portfolios, or the bond portion of your portfolios, really started to add value, like we talked about earlier, and we expect that to continue over the next few years.
When is their next meeting? Is it August or September, the Fed?
Yeah, just had, it's coming up next Wednesday. Yeah,
Sounds right.
yeah, next
Oh, that's
Wednesday.
soon.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess at any meeting they have, there's potential to change rates.
Yeah, I can say it's not really expected this time, because they keep sending out signals we're gonna wait and see. Yeah, and they're getting a lot of pressure from certain places to tell them to lower rates, but so far they're remaining independent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep in mind there'll be a new Fed president appointed early next year at Trump's discretion, and so he's made it clear that he wants rates lower. So that's one of the reasons we think rates will probably go down before they go up, at least short-term rates. This next slide, just a quick point on the unemployment rate. We've talked in the past couple quarters how unemployment has crept up a little bit, but it's still kind of at historic lows. And I would consider it good news that it's kind of been flat over the last several quarters. So, you know, the job of the Federal Reserve is to control inflation and maintain full employment. And they've got inflation under control and unemployment staying at a really healthy level. So I'd consider it a job well done for them. Then finally, just wanted to hit on the volatility that your portfolio and just the general market has experienced so far this decade. You know, we're only 5.5 years into the 2020s, and we're focusing on this light yellow bar here. So this is the number of plus and minus 1% days in the stock market by decade. And even though we're just barely halfway through the decade, you can see we've already had the average volatility of a full decade. And so you experienced in 2020 a 35% drawdown due to COVID. In 2022, a 27% drawdown from the inflation crisis. And then just earlier this year, a 21% drawdown from the tariff scare that we had. So just wanted to give y'all a job well done on kind of staying committed to the plan and not getting shaken out of, you know, the long-term goals of the portfolio.
All of our prepared remarks. Glad to touch on anything else you want to explain.
We should have had y'all coming in every month with all this volatility, just to have fun conversations.
Well, we can do that. We can do that. We prefer better months when the market's up. But we can do that too. Not very many people will listen to us for very long. It's not usually not subject matter that people are just real interested in it, unless they're responsible for money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the information.
We appreciate you. Thank you for your business. We appreciate you.
Good information.
We talked about inflation and how it's cooled off, if you want to use that term. Do you think prices are part of the trend you're seeing in retail sales? Do you think people are holding off spending because they feel like prices are too high?
Because they've gone up so much, you know, there's no, just because inflation or growth rate of it has slowed down, you know, when companies were able to needed to increase prices or were able to increase prices, those don't go away.
Right.
You know, so we may be at a level where things have been going up for so long that's really causing people, when pay hasn't gone up kind of at the same rate.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. The consumer's pretty tapped out too, with credit card debt and that kind of thing, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my theory of the majority of the cause of it.
Yeah, we haven't seen, too much inflation yet because of the tariffs. Of course, everything that was put in 3 months ago or whatever, it's just now kind of creeping its way through prices of things. So inflation may not go down in the next few months. It could actually creep up, continue to creep up, and then, we get some kind of news on tariffs that changes from time to time pretty frequently.
And I think the sales tax numbers being down tells us that people are not going out trying to buy stuff ahead of the tariffs.
No,
No, they're not.
no. Big companies did quite a bit of that in the first quarter, like big companies.
Right.
Spending as much as they could or needed to before that happened, but
Yeah.
no, I agree with you. So
And I think a lot of it's confidence driven too. So, the majority of people's net worth is built up in their house and their retirement plan. So, earlier this year, like we talked about, people saw their retirement plan balances go down quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then, the headline news that has people spooked as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
All
guys.
right, see y'all.
See y'all in a few months.
Nice to meet you, Andrew.
Nice to meet you.
We have several, pension refund requests. I have one I'm gonna have to remove, unless y'all think we should go ahead and pay it. We have one from a former employee that has not signed his pension refund request form. And I also received an invoice from his department today for some equipment he has not returned. So I'm gonna hold that one out unless y'all think we ought to go ahead and process it. I've tried to contact him with no luck at all.
How much is his refund?
His refund would be $2,298.13, and he owes a little less than $100 to the department. So I can hold that one until he contacts us and then process it.
That would be my preference.
Okay, well, that's what I'll do. I ran the total numbers, taking his amounts out, so. We have Joseph Ians, $812.13. Addison Laverne O'Reilly, $698.43. Kimon Ackland, $5,251.17. Brent Lewitt, $1,055.14. Jake Webb, $3,781.82. Colleen Wells, $9,835.28. For a total of $21,433.97. These are all post-tax.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. I have one employee that has submitted documents to retire. His name is Michael Burnham. He wishes to retire effective September 5th. He's a CDL driver at sanitation. He's been with us 12 years, and he meets the age requirements also. So,
I'll move to approve his retirement.
okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Does anyone have any new business they wish to bring up?
I have a question.
Okay.
I read in the news from time to time, like teacher retirement, that system, they make the news. They invest in like real estate and buildings and everything, and just a poll more than a question, I wonder if, would we be interested in ever doing that? Not that we need to, because our portfolio does very well for us, but it's just a what if, just a food for thought.
Yeah, that might be a question we might wanna ask.
Is it risky?
That would be mine. What would be the risk? Because we obviously aren't gonna have as much funds to play with as APERS does. So I wonder if the risk,
Teacher retirement. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess if it's safe and it's usually riskier, means you can make more money, you know,
Yeah.
but.
there'd be risk involved, but it would be a way to diversify ourselves a little bit too.
Yeah.
Not have everything in the bond and stock market.
Yeah, that's a good point also.
Yeah, I don't know, how would we go about even doing that? Would that be something we'd have to take out of the?
Probably have to take part of it out of here.
Withdraw funds from here and use that to purchase something, if something came along that we,
We'll just purchase it and hold it till like value it up and sell it, is that kinda?
that or I think they own, I think they lease space to other government agencies,
Oh,
So kind of like the way City Hall is renting to
to
the post office with that.
That's a good way to make money.
yeah.
Well, and I think, I mean, the one advantage to having, you know, financial manager, whoever it is, you know, hopefully, like they're trying to do, they keep ahead of what's happening in the general market, but it does limit what we could invest in. You know, I don't know, kind of, you sort of alluded to that, is there any restrictions on a city that would be different than like the retirement fund for teachers
I don't know.
about, or tax implications, you know, that might, you know, I don't know enough about it to.
No, because we're defined benefit plans, that makes us a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So is teacher retirement.
Is it a defined benefit?
Mm-hmm.
Is our, document pin, you know, that we have to go by, is that on our internet, like something that is accessible to the public, or?
It should be.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Our plan document.
yeah.
I don't know if it is or not. If it's not, we can put it on there.
Yeah.
Something
I
that
think it is,
I
but
kind of think it is, but
Yeah.
I'll check on that.
to come through and kind of see what.
you know,
What it touches on there.
maybe check in with the municipal league and see if they have any, if they're aware of any other cities doing something like that, or how it's handled.
Yeah.
And they would know legally if there was any constraints, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
on, you know, being a city versus state versus, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, Charles could probably look at it too, but municipal league should know all that, and if there are other cities, we can maybe talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
What does Conway Corp do? What are they a part of?
They have their own.
They
like
have
we
their
do.
own,
Are they pension, or is it just like a 401k or IRA, or?
They do a pension that Conway Corp fully funds. The employees don't have to contribute. And then they also they give the employees options for, I think, a 401k type plan where they're just trying to grow an account.
Mhm.
But their pension plan is like ours, it's a defined benefit.
But as a utility, they have a better revenue stream.
Yeah, that's, I was wondering how they were funding that, but I'm pretty sure I know.
That's a good question.
It is.
Something to think about.
Definitely worth thinking about. Because there's only so much land.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, Conway's getting kind of built out towards the river there. And
Well, I'll make a motion to adjourn if there's no other
I'll second.
comments.
All in favor?
Aye.
Uh,